now ask John Clarke, who is our liaison person at Buckingham College, to say a few words, and then put a viewpoint from the University of Buckingham perspective, and then we'll have a time of questions.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome you all very much to the University of Buckingham. And it is a great pleasure and indeed privilege that the YCollege project is launched from Buckingham. And let's think for a moment about why this is so important. University of Buckingham is many things. First of all, very obviously, as you can see, it is a small university. And however large the Y project may or may not become, I think that the essence of what is being envisaged is that Y2 will be, at least in relative terms, a fairly small university. Institutions of roughly the same sort of size, I think, can work together extremely well. When there is an enormous imbalance between the sizes of the institutions involved in working together, then I think that is a recipe for likely problems. Small is beautiful is a fairly uncontroversial proposition, I think. The question of independence is perhaps more of a controversial issue. Len very kindly gave me a history of the Y College to read after my recent visit, and I could see there that in some respects, if one looks at the history of agriculture in this country over the 20th century, then in some senses greater state involvement in agriculture has been one of the things that seems to have saved British agriculture from the depths of depression at the end of the 19th century. Well, I don't know whether it's the state. I mean, I know farmers in Buckingham who said the best friends that British farming have ever had were Kaiser Bill and Adolf Hitler, and that is probably closer to the mark. And also the history of why would seem to suggest that there is a difference between the Y tradition and some of the grander, socially grander agricultural colleges like Cirencester, which recruited from a rather higher social niche than Y did. And perhaps the concept is that independence may be a kind of polite word for social exclusivity. And that is a challenge that both Y, if it takes the independent route, and indeed Buckingham must face. I think there are a number of important points, though, to realise about independence. First of all, however much you may dress it up, if you're dealing with a state university that the state funds, ultimately it's the state who is the customer for the services that university provides, and frankly, the students get in the way. And therefore, the key to independent success is to have a student-orientated university. It is absolutely no accident at all that the University of Buckingham, for the last 2 or 3 years, has come top in the National Student Survey of Satisfaction. And I believe that is a great deal to do with the fact that we are an independent university. The other thing I would say about independent universities, of course, is that when you're thinking of attracting students, state universities are becoming more and more expensive, and all of the indications are that with top-up fees, the difference between what is a reasonable fee in the independent sector and what is the actual fee in the state sector will get smaller and smaller. And there are, of course, other pluses. That if you have a 2-year course, you have less living expenses, you have a chance of starting to earn a proper living earlier. In fact, really the cost disadvantage to students in the independent sector is rapidly disappearing. And of course, if you plan to recruit students from outside of the EU, and given your traditions of support for agriculture in Africa and other places, then actually fees in the state sector are very high. You may well be able to undercut in that area. So independence, I would say, don't think of it as there is no alternative. Embrace it. It really is a positive good in its own right. Now, the road that the University of Buckingham has trod in the last 30, 40 years has not, I have to say, been an altogether easy one. And I don't think your task is at all easy. Don't let's kid ourselves. There are enormous obstacles to overcome. The question of the access and acquisition of the site, the recruitment of sufficient quality students and staff. Well, all of these things are really quite difficult tasks to achieve. I think the fact that this university has in some senses been there before, we didn't have a body of loyal alumni like you to draw support from, and of course all the other universities were state universities when we started, and people they just did not believe in the value of our qualifications. In all of these things, in our experience, in a certain way, in our projection of a certain image, our contacts, we will do our very best to help the Y project. Of course, we may have to do rather more specific diligence and negotiations about the specific terms of the circumstances in which we validate degrees and other things, but the goodwill is definitely there. Things never turn out quite as we intend or you intend, but basically Buckingham is very, very much behind this project. We want it to succeed. And just finally, why? Well, it's wonderful when you go around places and people say, well, tell us, why is Buckingham so good? And you say, well, it's good for this reason, good for that reason, good for all sorts of reasons. And then there's always somebody at the back who said, well, if Buckingham is so marvellous, why aren't there any more Buckinghams? And that is a difficult question to answer. And we see the independence. We are a little bit lonely in the independent sector, to be honest, in higher education. And we'd like some friends in the independent sector in higher education. And we think that Y might be a very good friend. We're not, of course, in competition with each other. We don't study agriculture, although I would say that I do insist that my students pay a certain respect to the works of Francois Kenny and the physiocrats. And so there's just enough to bring us together, enough of separation of objectives, but in a common purpose to make small colleges succeed, independent of the state. That's what brings us together, and with those qualities uniting us, I think we can achieve a great deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you for that endorsement.